Hey, what's up, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a video game review of Doom for the Nintendo Switch, a port of last year's version that was released on the PS4, Xbox One, and the PC. And I did a review on that one, though. I'll have a link in the description for that one, though. So, the fact that Doom coming to the Nintendo Switch was kind of a surprise for me, though, okay? While before they made that announcement, I never thought that the game would come to the Nintendo Switch. Not that I didn't want it to come to the Switch or anything like that, I just didn't know if the Switch had the capabilities or anything like that. It was often referred to as kind of like a pipe dream, by all means, though. So to hear the fact that the game at one of the Nintendo Directs that Bethesda was bringing over, my mouth literally just dropped when I heard that, though. I did not thought in a million years Doom, not to mention Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossals, which will be out next year, though, would be coming to the Switch. And I thought, when I saw that, I was like, exactly how powerful is the Nintendo Switch? Exactly how powerful is it to bring these kind of games over? Now, I did invest 2 weeks into the game. I eventually started playing it, though. And while I will say this, it may not be the most perfect port of the game, but it's clear, though, that time and effort went into this in order to make this game happen, though. So why don't we get started with the pros and the cons? So let me get my notes out, though. So why don't we start with the first one? The first pro is that for those who are picking up the Switch version, though, all the content is going to be there. That includes all the DLCs that were released for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC, minus the mods or anything like that, and all the updates, though. So you're basically, if you're getting the Switch version right here, you're not getting the vanilla version. You're getting basically everything that is available, though. The next thing I do want to point out, though, is that although the game runs at 720p, 30 frames per second, it's impressive. I mean, even at that low resolution compared to how the Xbox One, PS4, and PC, which runs at 1080p, 60 frames per second, PC, obviously, you can improve that up even more. It just amazes me that this game is still able to run even at 30 frames per second, and it runs pretty well, regardless if you're playing it both dock and undocked or anything like that. So at 720p 30 frames per second, I'm impressed. I'm really impressed that they were able to pull this off, and I still was able to do what I could normally do in the Doom game, though. And last but not least, though, I do want to point out about the Joy-Cons. And I will say, having played the game undocked, having taken it to work using, the Joy-Cons with the Joy-Con grips, I will say the Joy-Cons work well on the Switch version in Doom, okay? I know some people have some issues with the Joy-Cons, but I didn't find it as, in any way, as uncomfortable as some people thought it would be. I mean, I was still able to do everything I needed to do in the game, was still able to move the character, use the guns, and everything like that. So, as far as the use of the Joy-Cons, though, I will say the Joy-Cons do work well on the Switch version of Doom. Alright, we're going to take a bit of a break, and when we come back, I'm going to give you my cons for of Doom for the Nintendo Switch. What the cons, what I don't like about it. So, we'll take a bit of a break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our review of the Switch version of Doom for the Nintendo Switch. And now that I gave you the pros, why don't we get started with the cons? So, as far as the cons go, there are a couple, though, and there's one that's pretty obvious, as I like to refer to sort of like as the elephant in the room, though. So, why don't we get started with the first pro, though. First con, though. Now, as I mentioned, one of the pros, the Joy-Cons, I mentioned that the Joy-Cons work well on the Switch version of Doom. And they still do. Even when I took the Switch to, like, when I was on my lunch break, I played it for a bit with the Joy-Cons, including with the Joy-Con grip as well. And it seemed, and everything I was able to do in the game worked just fine, though. That said, while the Joy-Cons work well, I still believe that the Pro controller, right here, this here is probably the better option to work with when it comes to playing Doom on the Switch, though. I just find it feels more comfortable using that one. It's not that I don't hate the Joy-Cons or anything, they work, but when it comes to playing, unless I'm playing my Nintendo Switch portably or in tablet mode, though, if you're going to play it at home or something like that, go with the Pro controller. That is probably the better option in terms of control schemes, though, okay? Nothing against the Joy-Cons, they work, but they're not the most ideal control scheme, at least for me, though, alright? The next one I do want to point out is that there is no SnapMap mode in the game, though. For those who are familiar, for those who've played the PC or the PS4 or the Xbox One version, there was a mode where you could basically create your own levels and have other people play them and share them throughout the entire the game, depending on how big the community was, and people will try them out and play them. And it was a neat idea, but that depends on how many people are involved in it, though. Unfortunately, the Doom version, or at least the Switch version of Doom, does not have SnapMap mode in the game, though. Now, whether or not that's a big deal to you or not, it's going to depend on your point of view, though. Personally, I'm not a big, create your own levels. I'm not really that great at them, though, but there are those who like it. And I do think it is kind of a bit of a disappointment, considering the fact that that would be a great potential to have for the Nintendo Switch. But unfortunately, there's no SnapMap mode in the game. Whether you think that's good and bad, that's going to depend on your point of view, though. And last but certainly not least, and this is the big elephant in the room, though, and that is the game running at 720p 30 frames per second, though. While I said that even at 720p 30 frames per second the game runs well, and it still does, though, for others out there, this is going to be, they're going to view this as sort of as a downgrade, though, compared to how Doom on the other systems and the PC were fast-paced and so on. So some people might be a little disappointed with this, though. Not to mention that it's also worth pointing out that graphically speaking, in terms of graphics for the Switch version, you could obviously see the limitations of the Nintendo Switch. It's not to say it isn't impressive that Panic Button, the port house that handled the Switch version of Doom, was able to pull it off, though, but obviously you could see that compromises were made in order to make this version right here, this version of Doom, to run and work on the Nintendo Switch. It's also worth pointing out, and I'm sure you'll see some of it in the gameplay footage, though, there were times also in the game where basically the game would stop saying unable to connect to the network, to parts where the music suddenly just mutes for no apparent reason. Luckily, I was able to go back to a last checkpoint and the music turned on just fine. The network part, I'm not sure, considering that I normally have stable Wi-Fi in my house, though, so I don't know whether it's because I was in another room or not, but whatever the case is, there were some performance issues as well. Was it enough to ruin my experience with the game? No, it wasn't, though, but it is something that's worth pointing out, and hopefully a patch will come at some point, though. But otherwise, as far as the 720p 30 frames per second, for some people, this is going to be viewed as a downgrade for some of you out there. Overall, Doom is still a fun game on the Nintendo Switch, but it also depends on how much willing of a compromise you're going to make, though. I got to admit, and I'm going to say this loud and clear, I have to applaud Panic Button for what they were able to pull off. I am actually very, very impressed that they were able to bring a game like Doom 2016 onto the Nintendo Switch, and they should be applauded for that, though. At the same time, it also shows that in order for this game to come, as I said earlier, there are clearly some limitations not only to the system, but obviously some compromises had to be made in order for the game to run well on the Switch. And that sort of is going to be sort of a difficult spot for people, though. Do I still recommend the game? Yes, Doom 2016 is still a favorite FPS shooter. I hold the series with high regards, even though I'm not a huge Doom fan. I'd rather play Doom and, of course, Wolfenstein over a Call of Duty game any day, though. So I still recommend it, But as far as the Switch version go, I would cautiously recommend it though, okay? I'm not discouraging people from not buying the game or anything like that, but the only way I could recommend Doom, the Switch version of Doom, though, would be for two reasons. For either these two reasons. One, the Nintendo Switch is your main console. That is your main system, the main thing that you play. And two, you are fully aware that the version you're playing is going to run at 720p, 30 frames per second. You're aware of that, and you don't have an issue with that, though. If you do have an issue, then I can't recommend Doom on the Nintendo Switch if you have a problem with the game running at 720p, 30 frames per second. But if you're okay with this, if you're okay with the fact that it runs at 720p, 30 frames per second, and you like the idea that you could bring Doom 2016 on the go, and you don't need a PC, you don't need a laptop or anything like that, that you can actually just play it on the go, then it is worth a play. So, it's definitely a recommendation though. I will just say the Switch version is somewhat of a cautious recommendation due to the fact that because of the big elephant in the room though, the 720p 30 frames per second, it might be a turn-off for some people though. I won't say it's a huge turn-off for me, but it might be for others out there. So. Okay, this concludes my video review, or my thoughts of Doom for the Nintendo Switch. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours though? Did you decide to pick up Doom for the Nintendo Switch? Are you impressed with the fact that they were able to pull it off as well? Do you think the Switch version of Doom is okay? Do you think it runs fine? Do you enjoy it? Or do you feel that the downgrade to 720p 30 frames per second will turn some people off? Was that a turn off for you? Was that not a turn off for you though? Did you like what I said in this video? Did you agree with what I said? Did you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And I hope you hit that like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. Links will be in the description. It could be to either PayPal me or Patreon though. It's evening in Southern California, so I'll be getting ready for bed soon. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that will be soon. Until then, for Southern California, I wish you all a good evening then. Bye!